If you're like me, you've got quite a bit of debt. And debt can come in the form of many different lovely packages, whether that be student loans, credit cards, or a mortgage. There's many ways that you can go into debt, but the most important thing is how are you going to get out of it. So today we're going to talk about my strategy for how I pay off my debt. And maybe you can pick up some tips and tricks in order to pay off your debt in a way that facilitates your path to financial independence. So let's talk about two methods of how to pay off debt. One, which is wildly popular, is called the Snowball Method. And with this method, basically what you do is you take the smallest dollar amount loan, and you pay that one off first. And then once you get that win, that check mark beside the loan that you've paid off, it kind of gives you a bit of momentum to keep going. And so you can just really quickly take off the small debts first, rack up those wins, and that'll keep propelling you forward in order to pay off all of your debt. So this is one method that's very popular. It doesn't take into account the APR, or the interest rate of that debt, which is why I personally prefer the second method, which is the Avalanche Method. So the Avalanche Method works a little bit differently. Instead of focusing on the amount, the dollar amount, it focuses on the APR, or the interest rate. So what you're going to do is look at all of your debt line by line, find the one that has the highest APR, the highest percentage rate of interest, and start knocking that one off first. So if you've got credit card debt, this is usually the one that you're going to want to tackle first, because those interest rates are not nice. They're not working in your favor, and you need to get that debt taken care of ASAP. The nice thing about the Avalanche Method is that you actually end up paying less over time. And I've got an example of that in my blog post. I'll have that linked below. But essentially, because you're knocking off the higher interest rates loans faster, your ending balance on your total amount of debt ends up being lower. And this can vary pretty significantly based on your debt and based on how variable those interest rates are within your debt. So it's something to consider. You need to know your own personality. Are you able to just keep going even though you're not hitting the check mark or the complete total payoff button right away? Do you need that to be able to continue? That's okay if you do. Many people need this, and that's where the Snowball Method can be a really great facilitator in taking down your debt. But if you don't need that in order to continue, you really need to give the Avalanche Method a thorough look through. Make sure that it's right for you, but if it is, it can save you some money in the long run. I'll also have linked in the description box a simple calculator you can use in order to figure out how much you would actually be saving by using the Avalanche Method. So whichever method you decide to use, it's important to know the numbers. You can't do this if you don't know the numbers surrounding your debt. And I don't mean just the total that you see at the top of your monthly statement. I mean all the numbers. You can use online apps such as Mint. They're a great way to track all of your accounts, but it doesn't really break it down in a way that I find easy to read. So I do an old-fashioned spreadsheet. And in that spreadsheet, I break down each individual loan. And if you've got student loans, this can be several line items if you have not consolidated. So mine's quite long. I've also got my auto loan, a Stafford loan, my mortgage, and is there anything else? I think that's it. I hope that's it. So I've got all of those debts listed in there for both my husband and myself. And I also include the loan amount, the APR, and just for a little bit of inspiration, I include the original payoff date that I got when I set my terms for my loan. So it's not necessary to know that one because you're going to pay them off before then anyways. Some other things that you might want to include are the minimum monthly payments that you're required to make. You're going to need to make these no matter what. You do not want to go into forbearance on your loans. You do not want creditors calling you about not paying your debt. You need to always pay the minimum. But the beauty of this spreadsheet is that it allows you to then figure out which loans you want to target your extra funds towards. Okay, now it's got to be done. Okay, so once you have all of this in a spreadsheet, you can use the nice little sort filter function at the top to sort everything by either the APR or the amount. I'm going to assume at this point you've decided to jump on the Avalanche train. If not, again, totally fine. But that's just personally what I do. I will start with the loan at the top, the one that has the highest APR, and I'll funnel all of my extra funds towards that. Once that bad boy gets paid off, he gets deleted from the list, I will see him no more, and I'll start on the next one until I get down to the loans that are below 5%. And that 5% is an arbitrary number. If anybody has a better number that I can use, I would love to hear it. As I get closer, I'll probably reevaluate and spend some more time looking into this threshold. Essentially what I've done is found a threshold at a loan. I happen to have a Stafford loan that's right at 5%. And I'm saying anything that's below that, I'm actually not going to prioritize paying those off. Once I get to that point, I'll start funneling all that extra money into the stock market in the form of my 401k, a Roth IRA, and then kind of like a traditional account. I don't know why I said traditional. That's not the right word. What is the right word? A brokerage account. So I invest in a total stock market index fund through my 401k. I'm very privileged to be able to select that option, that fund. But that's what I do. And historically, it has an average rate of return of about 8%. Now, we just left a bull market. It is June of 2020. Things are not hot right now. So that's why the word average is really important to remember here. So an 8% average rate of return, if I've got loans that are above that, with an APR above that, I definitely need to pay those off. I went all the way down to 5 just for a sense of security and because that was a nice cutoff number in my spreadsheet. So I had a loan that's right at 5. Anything below that, I'm not going to prioritize paying that off. Again, totally personal. You do what's best for you. So unlike the stock market, our loans, unless they're a variable interest rate, I don't happen to have any of those, but our loans are pretty much fixed. They have a fixed APR, and so unlike the stock market, which goes up and down, we know that that is a guaranteed rate. So that's part of the reason why you really want to prioritize paying off that debt. Let's talk about good debt and bad debt. There's actually a great video by Our Rich Journey, and I'll have it linked down below in the description box. But they talk about whether or not you should pay off your debt or invest into the stock market. And within that video, they talk about good debt and bad debt. And their stance is that there is no such thing as good debt, and I tend to agree. There's no such thing as good debt. Any debt you want to get rid of, you want it off your record, but there is some debt that is worse. So there's like bad debt and worse debt, and again, watch their video. They do a great job of explaining that. That worst debt is that high APR debt. So we're talking about credit cards, or if you've done like a payday loan. Some people may consider good debt something like your mortgage, which will probably have a pretty low APR interest rate, but it's still debt. So you do want to take care of that. But for me, my mortgage is barely over inflation. I think it's like 3.46. So it's not too bad. So I will prioritize putting money into my 401k before I prioritize paying that off. That's a personal decision. If you want to be totally debt-free, good for you. Go crush it. You can do it. But this is just my personal journey that I have outlined for myself. I'm not there yet, but that's the goal. Lastly, I just want to encourage everybody to, while you're looking through your debt, consider options that you may have on the table. Especially with student loans, it's really easy to consolidate your loans or enter into a different payment plan. I'm actually looking at putting my husband and I into a graduated repayment plan so that we can better optimize our Avalanche method. I haven't decided yet if that's truly the right path for us, but it's something that I'm looking into. You can also refinance loans. We currently have an auto loan that's at not a great interest rate, especially given our credit scores and the fact that we always pay it on time. But I haven't asked about a different interest rate. I haven't tried to negotiate, and I have not refinanced. But it's something that I'm looking into, and I would encourage you to do the same thing. Even with a mortgage as well, mortgage rates have been pretty low here lately, so if you have a little bit of cash on hand, you might want to think about refinancing your mortgage in order to get that interest rate down. Make sure to research all your options, evaluate yourself, and figure out which method is going to work best for you. But whichever way you do it, I wish you good luck in paying off your debt. Keep your fingers crossed that I can stay on this path of debt payoff. I've done pretty well so far, but it's a challenge. It's hard to take on those big numbers. Thanks for watching. Be sure to click subscribe to see more content like this, and comment below if you're on a similar debt payoff journey to me. If you got any tips, I would love them. This is a learning experience. I'm in the middle of this journey right now. I'm not at the end, so help me out. Comment below your thoughts, opinions, any advice. I would love it. See you next time. Bye.